I had desperately hoped yesterday to hear a breakthrough for local funding on local government, which is currently on its knees, to hear that we would end the homeless crisis in our cities and towns next year, not in 10 years, or that we would start a national house building programme to stop the scandal of children living in overpriced and poor quality emergency accommodation. Unsurprisingly, I was bitterly disappointed. Instead, we heard on council housing that councils could borrow an extra of £1 billion for home building, even though £20 billion would be available if the cap was totally scrapped. That we would remove the stamp duty for people that can afford homes. Nice if you have the money to start with, but helps not one bit for those just about managing to put food on the table. That they would build new garden towns, Mr Deputy Speaker, a policy that's been announced 3 times already, and people are still actually waiting for their homes. That we would see estate regeneration, but no requirements for actual tenants living in those estates to have a say on the regeneration. And finally, on homelessness, that we would halve rough sleeping by 2020, but no idea of how, apart from 3 measly pilot schemes. I always think, Mr Deputy Speaker, of pilot schemes is a path of a government that's got no conviction. Did Attlee in 45 say, "Oh, I've got a good idea about healthcare. I'll do a pilot scheme over the next 10 years, and if it works out, we'll roll it out to the country"? Did he? Heck! He said, "I've got the conviction to do this." Why can't we have a national Homes First programme? And rather than waiting 10 years, because this government, the reason we're not going to get it is it's got no convictions. And whilst I don't begrudge Liverpool, Manchester and Birmingham for the projects of Homes First, why not Westminster, the authority with the highest homeless population in the country? People only a few hundred yards from this chamber tonight will be freezing on the streets. Or in my constituency, of which I cover Brighton and Hove, the area with the 2nd highest homeless population in the country. And what are we to say to them? Don't worry. If you're still alive in 2027 and the pilot scheme's been successful, you might get help. If you're not already dead, that is. Because, Mr Deputy Speaker, let me give you some of the facts about what inequality looks like in this country. The average life expectancy for a man living on the streets is 47. For a woman, it is 43. Homeless people are 4 times more likely to die of unnatural causes and 35 times more likely to commit suicide. In the autumn of 2016, there were 4,134 people sleeping rough in England, and that is a 50% rise since 2014 and double since 2010. These are the people this government has forgotten, and barely a week goes by that I do not read in the papers about another needless death on our beach, on our promenade, or in our parks. And what about the thousands of damp homes, unsafe homes, making children ill, with families squeezed into one room and only a shared toilet down the corridor in the B&B? Why not a national scheme for decent council-run emergency accommodation? Of course not, because this is a government with no ideas and with no ambition. Well, excuse me if I don't give this the budget, the fanfare the Chancellor would like, because quite frankly, it is a pathetic response from a heartless government. This month, Brighton Housing Trust published an impact report on women and homelessness. It says many women seek protection from the men in housing, but some of those relationships lead to further violence. Lauren spent 3 months with a male friend, but in the end was violently assaulted and raped. She said, "I had to get to the point where I was black and blue in hospital with broken ribs before I could get help." Local authorities need funding to solve this problem. They don't need another task force that this government has set up, or a renamed and rebranded Homes and Communities Agency that will do little to solve the problem. I regard every homeless person that finds a bench or a vacant building or a sofa or a park in my constituencies as one of my constituents, and I say to them, don't give up. I cannot defend this budget, but let it be known there are people working in this place, on these benches, that will turn the clock of austerity back, that will provide for you and will provide for your communities. Thank you.